baby.
So this is what drove Donald Trump to win. I looked at the numbers. There's actually a direct line up between the adoption of industrial robots in a district and the movement towards Donald Trump. You can actually trace the line district by district. So I had the research and I went to Washington, D.C., and I'm a pretty cool guy, so I could meet with fairly important people.
Yeah.
And what do you think the folks in Washington, D.C. said to me when I said, hey guys, we're going through this massive transformation. It's already gotten Donald Trump in the White House and it's just going to get worse. What are we going to do? What do you think the folks in Washington, D.C. said to me when I said, what are we going to do?
Don't.
So the big responses I got were, number one, we cannot talk about that.
Oh.
Number two, we should study that. And number three, we must educate and train all Americans for the jobs of the future.
What jobs?
And that third one sounds halfway responsible. If you really didn't know what they were saying, you'd be like, yeah, that's right. And then you just like turn away. And then they'd go back to their salad and say, excellent, the conversation is over. But again, I looked at the numbers. Don't want to know what the effectiveness rate of government-funded retraining programs for manufacturing workers? What do you how effective do you think those were? Shout out some numbers.
35%.
It was 0 to 15%.
I was right.
And so then when I said, hey, we're terrible at that, it's 0 to 15%. Do you know what they said to me? They said, he said the salad is delicious. That's what he said. But what they said to me was, I guess we'll get better at it then. That's what passes for policy in Washington, D.C. I guess we'll get better. So I came back from Washington, D.C. There was one guy there who actually did me this immense favor, and he said something I'm going to share with you all today. He said, Andrew, you're in the wrong town. No one here is going to do anything about these problems because this is not a town of leaders. Washington, D.C. is a town of followers. And this guy actually said to me in a meeting in D.C., he said, the only way that we will try and solve these problems is if you were to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And what I said to him was, challenge fucking accepted. And I'm here with you all tonight, Seattle, to create that wave, bring it crashing down on their heads, wake them up, and say that we can do better than this. That are tearing our society apart. So how do we do that? If you're here with us tonight, you heard this sentence at some point. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. Am I right? Yeah! And all those three things are true. Now, the first time you heard that, you were like, that sounds like a gimmick. But then when you dig in, you realize that this idea has been with us since the founding of our country. Thomas Paine was for it at the beginning. He called it the citizen's dividend. Martin Luther King championed it in 1967. He called it a guaranteed minimum income, and it is what he was fighting for until he was assassinated the following year in 1968. Milton Friedman and 1,000 economists signed a study saying this would be tremendous for America. So much so, it was so mainstream that it passed the U.S. House of Representatives in 1971 twice. It almost became law. It came this close. And then 11 years later, one state did pass a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? Alaska! And how do they pay for it? Oil! And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology! Marijuana, that's right. No, you are right, it's technology. Marijuana-related technology. Technology is the oil of the 21st century. What they're paying for in Alaska with oil money, we can pay for with technology throughout the country. Now, I know some of you work for Amazon. How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? That's right. And you know those accountants were high-fiving, being like, we got it down to 0 taxes again this year. Jeff's gonna be so happy with us. He's gonna give us another Buick full of cash. And we're gonna take that cash home to our mansions, throw it in the vault, and take a bath in it like Scrooge McDuck, like we do in all the good years. Amazon's like this giant vacuum sucking up $20 billion in commerce every year out of our Main Street economies. Now, it is not Amazon's fault. Amazon's just really good at what it does.
I just bought G Fuel.
And it's not even Amazon's fault that they're paying 0 in taxes. That's also their job.
Okay, Dad.
But it's our fault if they're paying 0 in taxes.
Dad said no.
Look around, like, we must have messed up if we've designed a system where a $1 trillion tech company can pay less in federal taxes than everyone here in this park tonight. So the Amazon employers are like, oh shit, is Jeff watching me right now?
Jeff is in your phone.
It's cool, it's cool. Jeff's looking at some rocket to Mars right now. He's not paying attention to this park. He'll pay attention to it later when I'm in the White House. So if companies like Amazon are going to invest billions of dollars in AI and make things faster and more efficient, that's great. But we have to put our entire society, including everyone here in Seattle, in position to benefit from that progress and share in it. And that's what this $1,000 a month is designed to do. Now, I want you all to think for a second. After I'm president, thank you, Seattle. We pass the dividend, it comes your way. You all are like, wow, this really is happening. Like, the dividend's really coming through. What would you all spend the money on? So the point is that you would spend the money on things that you want, and a lot of that money would stay right here in the economy and circulate over and over again. It would make you all stronger, healthier, mentally healthier, would improve your relationships, would help create a pathway to do more of the work that you want to do. This is the human-centered trickle-up economy from people, families, and communities up. And make a reality. Yes, this $1,000 a month, again, as soon as you dig into it, you realize, wait a minute. Like, this would be tremendous for our society. It is one of the only meaningful things we can do in the face of the 4th Industrial Revolution, and there's nothing stopping a majority of citizens in a democracy from voting ourselves a dividend. Nothing at all. If 51% of us get together and say, hey, that makes a lot of sense, let's vote ourselves a dividend, then we will make it happen. And that is why we are building this movement tonight. So the first big move is the freedom dividend. The second big move is to get healthcare off the backs of American families and businesses. It is totally messed up in the richest and most advanced country in the history of the world. When we get sick or injured, we are more stressed out about navigating our healthcare system and our bureaucracy and paying for treatment than we are getting well. And it does not need to be that way. And one thing that infuriates me is when people are like, how are you going to pay for that? Are you kidding me? We already spend twice as much in our healthcare as other countries to worse effects. We're spending 18% of GDP. Again, I did the math. We can get the prices down, the access up, and improve our healthcare system and make it much more transparent and rational. I have a friend who's a healthcare investor, and she said to me, she said, Andrew, I've been looking at the numbers of these healthcare companies, and I've never seen anything like it. I have never seen profiteering at this level. It is like, she said, like it actually struck her as completely corrupt. And she went so far as to say she's going to short the stocks or bet against the stocks of those companies, and then she gave me a donation, and she said, go clean that shit up. So that's what we have to do in the healthcare system. We have to straighten out our incentives. We have to make it so that right now our healthcare providers benefit more from revenue generating activity than they do something that would make us healthy. And if we get the incentives right, we can make it so that our healthcare system starts working for us. So the third big thing is how many of you all woke up this morning